Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Inspire. Today's guest is a beautiful example of what it's like to live in alignment with mind, body, and purpose. She's a meditation and yoga instructor who helps people reconnect with themselves from the inside out. And she's also a skilled hair extension educator who empowers others to express their confidence on the outside. Her work bridges inner peace with outer transformation, reminding us that self-care isn't one-dimensional. It's a full spectrum practice. She brings grounding, creativity, and heart into everything she teaches, and her journey is a powerful reminder that you can build a life that feels as good as it looks. Please welcome Brandy Whitcomb to Inspire. Hi, Brandy.
Hi, Susan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are here. I've gathered some questions for Brandy to get some insight from her on her journey, and this is going to be a wonderful podcast. So I'll start out, Brandy. We'll go a bit into your personal journey and background. What was it that first drew you into yoga and meditation, and what kept you committed to practice over the years?
Yeah. So I would say just a little background with me to kind of understand is the first parts of my life really came from a need to accomplish, achieve. And with that, it also brought on a lot of addictions, addictive behaviors to things that gave me those adrenaline boosts. And I believe at the time when I started going to yoga, one of my friends from the gym, she recognized those behaviors, ones that I had not recognized in myself. And she kept asking me to join her at this yoga studio. And I was like, maybe next time, maybe next time. Well, eventually I said, yeah, I'll go. And within that first session of yoga, that first practice, something quieted in me. And I don't even really think that I recognized it till a bit later. Um, I think there was something that created this inner peace in me, and it gave me the ability to yet still feel strong, but slow down immensely from what I was used to. And to be honest, I don't know what drew me back because, as we all know, patterns and behaviors trump most things until we're tired of the fight inside. So yeah, something just kept me coming back to yoga. And I think at that time, actually, it was right before COVID. So then it led into slowing down immensely. And I was practicing meditation. While I was going to the gym, I would listen to podcasts and I kept hearing meditation, meditation, meditation. And I was like, there must be something to this meditation. And then after that led me into yoga. And so I think it was several events that kept me in that yoga class long term and now continuing that cycle.
Wow. Well, so I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to that. You always feel like, oh, I've got to achieve more. I've got to be, active in this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of people can relate to that, striving for more and feeling like you always have to be busy. But meditation is about slowing down that process and having some inner peace. So I love that answer. That's beautiful. So as you move along, how did your transition from wellness uh, transition into teaching hair extensions at your beauty school?
So I would say, from the aspect of the wellness, when I was practicing yoga, something in me was very interested in teaching. And so I ended up getting my teacher certification. And from that point, you get those inner knowings from meditation. It becomes less about what do I want and more about what do I need to become. the most peaceful version of myself? And so that's the questions I ask myself every day. And so in those quiet moments, I would say, what is it that I think I need right now, not necessarily what do I want? And not that I can't have my wants met as well, but I find within the human spirit, we tend to go to our wants over our needs. And my true need was I need to learn how to communicate better. I need to meet the needs of others. I want to be able to then show up for other people. And so I started there with teaching yoga, and then it inspired me to get a little deeper in my own career. And I learned within myself for quite a while, I really struggled just being here and now. What do I have in this present moment? What do I have to offer right now? It was always like, once I become this person, then I can do this. Or once I become this, then I will be good enough to teach. Once I am, it was always once I'm there, then I will be good enough. But then I start incorporating the mindset, what happens if I'm good enough right now to do these things and teach where I am at? So one thing led to the next. And even, in this moment right now, I am taking a bit of a break from teaching at the schools because I had my hands too too many places. And I think that's also meditation, is knowing when we are doing too much and stepping back, and we can always move back into that later on. And I'm still teaching yoga right now, still doing hair extensions, wigs, and such. But I think when we get too many things going on, we're really nowhere.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to that also. And a lot of us in our journey for transformation, we always have the inside small voice that's speaking to us. Some people say it's God, some people say it's spirit or infinite intelligence, but Brandy was speaking about the small voice intuition that she kept hearing, which my mentor always taught is one of our higher mental faculties that we need to learn to tune into rather than the outside. And so that's a wonderful way of explaining it. So, Brandy, when did you realize that the hair extensions and the meditation, how those things could coexist and lead down to one path, how they could come together?
So, about 4 years ago, I decided to leave my career in hair and venture out because my soul was just very, very restless. And through that process, it was a really, really good journey because it gave me the ability to let go of everything I thought I was within hair and the hair realm. And at the time, I was trying to achieve. Once I can do the perfect hair, once I can get the perfect curls down, all of those things just kept consuming me. And it was getting to the point, it was just making me sick. And I was in the process of learning to let things go. And something, that intuition again said, there's something you don't know yet. We need to venture down a different path and try something different because what you're doing isn't working. I just kept creating this misery, and we don't always have to leave anywhere to find that, but in that moment it was right for me, and I really gained a lot of insight from the company I went to. It's an amazing company, and they had a lot of classes on mental health, well-being. They had communications classes, so I was able to see outside of what I had been doing for 10 years, and it gave me different skills. So with that said, the way that I incorporated it was, I didn't understand until I got really quiet that I was really secretly judging the beauty industry while simultaneously trying to be in it. And I realized that I had to find inner peace within it and find my value that I was actually giving to people. And so through this process, it was like, what value am I giving to people? Because I felt like I was just giving people permission to complain about themselves, to hate themselves, to always critique themselves, to never find joy within themselves. And I thought, you know what? How can I find piece here, and the answers kept saying, let people talk, let people speak, listen, engage with them. That is where I found my purpose. And then it led me into, the medical wig side, the toppers, the things that I was so angry about, right? Like, because deep down, something in me knew nobody needed these things to be fixed. But I realized when they sat in my chair, by the time they left, if we can create this feeling, I feel really good about myself. I had a great conversation. My hair is beautiful. My spirit is up. Then we get to take that emotion out into the world. We get to share that with our families. We get to share that with our coworkers. We get to share that with the people around us. So that is when I realized my value behind the chair as a stylist was more than just vain. It was so deep. And now I get to have and get to share and get to learn from my clients as well. And so there's so many things, but that is really the essence of where I'm at right now.
That is a wonderful amount of awareness to see that in yourself. And for the listeners, seeing something in yourself that you need to change, but not beating yourself up for it, and then be willing to change and start working towards that change. An incredible amount of awareness. And that's a lot of people don't necessarily understand what we're talking about when we talk about awareness or being present. And that's what we're talking about. There's higher levels of awareness. And so that's a tremendous amount, which is beautiful. I love the way that Brandy put that. So the next question is, if you're talking to somebody about yoga and meditation who's brand new to it, how do you introduce them to it so that they understand it better or that they'll try it?
So the nice part about this is yoga and meditation is becoming more mainstream. More people are talking about it. It's still definitely some would consider woo-woo or on another level. So I try to break it down as simple as possible. Meditation is a great way of calming the nervous system. Oftentimes we're in a state of fight or flight and we don't even realize it. Many of us from a very young age, we are bringing that fight or flight into our adulthood. And when we are in fight or flight, we cannot fully use the full functionings that our brain offers. And so, a great way is I tell people we all have this amazing tool in our head. If we can learn to calm our nervous system, take it from fight or flight to the rest and digest state, that is where we have the ability to create and really live a purposeful life and a meaningful life. And so, meditation really offers that ability to do that. What yoga does is it's in the same sense, but for some of us, when we first start this journey, sitting is not a real practice. It's not a thing because we sit and then all of a sudden these floods of childhood traumas come up, emotions, I'm not good enough, what is wrong with you? We start hearing all these voices, the only voices that have ever lived in our heads. So, what yoga does is as you move through these postures and you create these movements in your body, we're releasing the trauma, we're creating proof that we can do the things other people can do and that we're not limited. And so that's just the tip of the iceberg. I could go into this for days on how every step levels into the next. Just like when I first got into meditation, it was more about what can I achieve? What can I accomplish? Now, when I do a headstand, it's because I'm playful and I'm fun and I'm bringing joy to my practice and lightheartedness, where before it was this rigidness and needing to get somewhere. So I would say in the beginning, it's going to look different than where your practice will evolve to.
Exactly. And for listeners, so it does sound, when you first, if you're not familiar with it, it's like sit still for 5 minutes. Well, yeah. One of the great teachers of meditation, Joe Dispenza, he has some great meditations, which I think Brandy could share some with us too. But just sitting down and quieting your mind for 2 or 3 minutes to start out and then adding minutes maybe later on. But yeah, just to do it for a few minutes and taking some deep breaths makes a huge difference in your whole mindset. And you realize you don't have to be emotionally involved with those thoughts if they're negative, especially. You don't have, you can choose. You're the observer. You are the observer. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer. And so I love the way that she explained that, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Meditation is fantastic, and we have like 70,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are from our paradigm from the past where we're conditioned emotionally, a lot of times in the wrong way, but we do have some good paradigms. So remember that. And so the next question is so there's a lot of misconception, which I think you kind of touched on, misconception about yoga and meditation and finding, explaining to people how to correct that misconception, which you touched on because people automatically have all their concepts of what it is and what it isn't.
Totally. Yeah. I would say one of the biggest myths is that we need to still the mind, and that's just not real. Some of the greatest meditators in the world, some of my greatest mentors will explain that meditation isn't about quieting the mind. It's about like visualizing yourself being on the side of the highway and just letting the cars drive by. So it's the same, like we're just sitting in the present, whether it's the breath, it's the counting, or it's a sensation. It's when we notice our mind has followed that car, followed that thought, got engulfed in the emotion of whatever that thought has brought us, recognizing it and imperfectly bringing it back and settling it back down to the present moment.
Exactly. That's wonderful. Wonderfully said. So, Brandy, how do you stay grounded when life gets chaotic?
Oh, that's such a great question. And I wish I could give this piece of advice and it would just click, but it didn't work that way for me. So I would say start with one thing. Find one tool in your toolbox. Set for 1 minute and write out the things that make you feel good. Is it picking a flower? Is it calling a friend? Is it sitting in the hot tub? I know when I was going through my hardest moments in life, when my kids were dispersed to their dads and I had to sit with myself and no longer sit in chaos, I had to make a lot of choices. And I found driving very soothing to me. And so I started driving. That driving took me then to hot springs. It took me out in the mountains. It took me into this stillness. And then I started learning how to be by myself that way. And that's not easy to do. I think a person would be best suited finding a counselor, finding somebody. And I don't want to say counseling or this or that, a mentor, whatever mentor where you feel safe. It's a process and it's an unfolding. So I would say there's no simple answer, but I would say over time it gets easier. And people used to say that to me, and I just thought, there's no way. There's no way I could do that. There's, you know, nothing in my DNA that will allow me to do that, right? I gave myself labels that I had heard my whole life. I was ADHD. I had learning disabilities. I was manic depressant. I was out of control. Like, she'll always be the one. She's going to be the one going to prison. She's going to be young and knocked up, right? So I had to learn how to separate those thoughts and realize they weren't my thoughts. And a lot of us come from that same dynamic. And just to be very clear, it's not a shame or blame on our parents, our teachers, any of that. They were truly doing what they knew best. But as we're unfolding and we're learning how to create these tools in our toolbox that works for us, a lot of these things come up. And so I'd say find a mentor that has done the thing that you're looking for.
Yes, that's so true. And so what Brandy is talking about, which all of us, when you learn about how your conscious mind and your subconscious mind works, it's a wonderful thing because your conscious mind is the gatekeeper. And what happens is those thoughts, well-meaning parents, teachers, oh, you're not smart enough, you're not like Joey, they get planted into our subconscious mind. And then we act accordingly until one day we decide to change them. And most everybody is raised that way. So learning how to um, relearn and get new habits and new paradigms is part of the journey. So,
Um,
Brandy, what inspired you to start teaching the hair extensions?
so, a couple different things, actually. I know from personal experience, if I'm trying to learn something, the fastest way to do that is to start teaching what we know. Not teaching what we don't know, but start teaching what we know. Because then it implants a little bit deeper in the mind. And then it also aligned with my giving and receiving. The way that I have learned to be the most healthiest, happiest is it's like taking a breath. We have to take a breath in, but we also have to give a breath out. So it's the giving and the receiving. So I was giving my services to help and give back. And then I was also gaining something from that experience as well.
That's great. I love your answers. So, what do you wish that more people understood about the artistry of hair extensions?
Mm. So, this is a really interesting question, and I've been pondering how I'm going to respond, and I'm just going to try to say it as authentically as I can. To me, it doesn't matter if we have gray hair or it doesn't matter if we have long, beautiful, flowing hair. I say embrace where you're at this point of life. Where you're at right now might be completely different in 10 years. For the last 10 years, I have not focused on my aesthetics at all, almost to I wouldn't say neglect state. I would say several years ago it was neglect. Then it became acceptance. And now I'm kind of moving back into the ooh, playful fun, enjoying. I want to try them. So embrace where you're at. I think for me, it's about enjoying it, being authentic, doing it for you, doing it for the joy that it brings you. So whether if somebody's like, "Oh, is that fake hair?" Yeah, it's fake hair. It's fine. I own it. So it's it's not about I need this to be happy. It's about do I want this right now to have a little bit of fun.
Yes, great answer. So, yes, and what I teach in some of my coaching is I believe our true essence is 95% of our spirit. Our body is just our shell, but that doesn't mean, we would neglect it. And of course, everybody wants to look good. So, yes, that's wonderfully said how you blended the two. I love that. So moving on, how do you help students, how do you help them build confidence, especially when they're learning a technique that requires precision and patience?
This is such a great question. And I think the reason I resonate with this so much is because it's something that not only, do I think we need when we're young? We need it when we're older. It doesn't matter till the day we leave this earth. We need patience. And I have learned just through teaching, just because I know something doesn't mean somebody else does. And so they say whenever you begin teaching anything, teach at a sixth grade level. And so that would probably be my best advice is when you're teaching and you're sharing, go into it as if they are brand new and give them extreme amounts of compassion. Um, I did notice when going into the beauty school, they not all necessarily wanted this class, but it was one that they needed to take based on the school's requirements. And it's interesting, like teaching yoga, where people show up because they want to be there versus not everybody wants this advice or this information. And so I had to really keep reminding myself other people's rudeness is not a reflection of my teaching. And so, with that said, it also gave me the opportunity to find a little bit more peace and patience and even a little bit more time, finding the students that were struggling a little bit more and giving them a little bit more one on one time. And from my experience too, teaching and just being a student once and many, many times myself, nobody wants called out in front of a classroom. Pulling somebody aside if something is unacceptable, a behavior, or if they're just really struggling, instead of being like, hey, Lacey, let me come help you. I see your struggle, right? Like finding a quiet space for them to feel like they can take some feedback is really, really important as a student and as a teacher relationship to build that trust.
Yes, wonderful. Great. I love the way you said that. It's, yes, definitely. Everybody does need patience in our journey, for sure. So, do you see an interconnection between the inner work of yoga and meditation and the beauty education?
Could you repeat that one more time for me?
So, do you see a connection between the inner work of meditation and yoga and the outer work of beauty education?
Yeah, I do. I would say the yoga and meditation, right? Like oftentimes we think about meditation as sitting and the yoga as movement, but there's, when we talk about yoga, it's the eight limbs. There's eight different aspects, the inner growth, the outer growth, all of those things. And I think the same could be said with the beauty industry, right? Like we see this outer, but are we providing that same beauty within? And I think that's where those two have met for me. And my conversations in the salon from when I first started was, gossip and rumors and what the next public, announcement was to now most of the time it's how are your kids? How are your family, right? How are the things in your life? So I think the same can go. We're all just trying to find this inner softness, whether it's getting our hair done or we're meditating or we are learning a new posture. We're all just trying to feel good.
Yes. So I can't remember what great mentor said that you find happiness by helping others, and it's an outward projection, and Brandy's talking about that. And also what I teach is leaving others with increase. And no
Mm,
matter what, you try to leave everyone. It doesn't matter what they say or do back. You always try to leave others with increase. And that's exactly what she just said, is leaving others. How was your day? How are you doing? People like to talk about themselves, which isn't good or bad. It's just the way we are as humans.
yeah, definitely.
So, how do mindfulness practices influence the way you teach in the beauty classroom?
Oh, I love this. So, a lot of times, like you said, not good or bad, but I've experienced these classes where they just start going into this skill. And that is needed most of the time, depending on the area of expertise. But I found through my teaching, if I can teach some of the basics, and that is human connection, it's amazing how much of a difference that leads into the service. And I'll give you an example. When I went into the beauty school, I always start with the consultation, focusing on what the client's needs are, because we can tend to project what we want, what we think is going to look good on the client. But the reality is, they come from a life of experiences. And say I recommended a hairstyle and I put my own opinion on it and my own perception on it, and it looked just like their mom's hair, but there's some deep rooted resentment there. They're going to end up hating that haircut. So it's really, really important that I can listen to my client. Now, if they say, I would love your suggestion, what do you think? What do you want? I love that as well. But I always say to my clients, what is it that you don't want? And what do you want, right? Getting a really clear definition of their wants and their needs versus what they don't.
Right. That's great questions that you ask because you're digging deeper to find out exactly what makes them feel good, what makes them tick, what's going to make them. I agree. I've had before in the past a haircut or a color and then or they even combed my hair the way that I don't like it combed and it would bother me.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a real thing, and that's okay.
Right, right, exactly. So, have you noticed that students who practice self-awareness or grounding techniques, they learn differently?
Definitely. I even find the difference between somebody just that finds a little bit of movement in their life, a little intentional breath work movement that could be anything, walking. I have realized these last few years it's definitely not just yoga or just meditation. It's just the ability to take a deeper breath, find space in between responses, because what happens when we learn how to breathe, we have to learn to quiet the mouth. And it's amazing how many thoughts go through the mind in a matter of 10 seconds. And if we pop off with the first thought, then we don't wait for the fourth or fifth, the one that actually creates the most um, peace. And so
Yeah,
I do find that. I find people that practice these. It's not that, because there's also this conception. I think these things, I have these thoughts. Well, guess what? We all do. We all have them. The first through like the fifth thought, oftentimes it's just a childhood thought or a childhood memory or old behaviors or patterns. It's usually not till like the sixth, seventh, or eighth thought. And so people that practice these definitely have more of awareness around their behaviors.
definitely. I had a great mentor one time that said they related thoughts to the jumping monkey because they're always coming. Always
Yeah,
coming. They're everywhere. Thoughts are everywhere. They're energy, just like everything around us is energy.
totally.
So what do you have some daily practices that help you stay aligned with your purpose? Daily practices.
I do. I do. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I sit on my edge of my bed with intention. And so I take some deep breaths, inhale and exhale. And then I say, what kind of person do I want to show up today? Who do I want to show up as myself today? I want to be kind. I want to be loving. I want to be compassionate. I want to be a good wife. What does a good wife look like? Um, I listen to my husband's needs. I also ask my husband for my needs. So it's that mutual give and take. So I do that with almost every area of my life. How do I want to show up as a friend? How do I want to show up as a coworker? How do I want to show up as a mom? What intentions? So I set my full intentions, and it takes roughly about 5 to 10 minutes. But I just sit and process through my emotions. How am I feeling today? Do I have the energy for all of this today? And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no. And just saying, you know what, maybe today just being a little bit quieter is what I need. So it's evaluating what I want, how I want to show up, my wants, my needs, and then also being like, do I have this to give? And if the answer is no, I understand that. And then I move through my day with a lot of grace.
So, for our listeners, I think Brandy probably has some tips and stuff that you can learn maybe on a website or maybe your Instagram if you'd like to tell us what that is, and they could follow and maybe start putting some of these practices into their daily practice.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I do have my Facebook. It's Brandy Whitcomb, and that's where I put all of my I like to call it my inspiration dump page. It's where I just bring a lot of my lightheartedness, my softness, my learning experiences, what I'm going through in the moments. It's kind of like my playground. And then I have my hair heartbeat that I talk a lot about the hair extensions, hair toppers, wigs, and then my personal beauty page is meditated stylist, and those are still evolving. So I would say that if you wanted just to get started, it would be the Brandy Whitcomb, because that's the one where I'm just completely me, completely vulnerable, open, transparent. That's the one where I talk more about this inner work versus my job per se.
Okay, thank you. So, follow her on those sites. And so we'll move on with these. How do you balance being a teacher, a wellness practitioner, and a human with your own needs?
Man, this is a loaded question because where I was 5 years ago looks completely different today. I ask myself, well, every Monday I sit down and I get really honest with myself. Do I have too much on my plate right now? What do I need to let go of? Am I taking care of my immediate needs? The things in my circle, my family, my mental health, my physical health, my, the wealth of or the health of my family and such. So, what's in my circle? And I've got really clear on my schedule, and it's ever evolving. I take 2 days off one week, I take three off the other. I have created a new workflow, which wouldn't make sense to most people. I work every other Sunday, and I often hear people say, why would you do that? And it's really because the salon is quiet. It's quiet. I don't have either one of my kids that day. I have time to myself and my client. So I would say continue making your schedule and evolving and changing it until it makes sense for you.
And that's
And
great.
yeah, it has to make sense for you, but the only way to do that is give yourself time to let it evolve.
I love that because you're making it's your schedule and it's what you need, and it's not, you're not worried about what somebody else said or thinks. No, because this is my schedule and that's how I designed it.
Yep. Yep.
A lot of times we're worried about what other people think and then we don't do something. Well, it's not about them. And it's not about being selfish. It's about doing what's right for you.
Yep. Because I find when I'm doing what is right for me, I ultimately am displaying the most authentic version of myself, and I am being so selfless with other people.
Hmm.
I'm helping more because I'm more at peace. When we can create more peace in our own lives, then we are able to, the energy flows to the people around us. They get the best version of ourselves.
Yes, exactly. So, what's something that you learn from your students, either meditation or beauty school salon, that surprised you?
I have definitely been humbled since I started teaching that I learn just as much from them as they learn from me. I learn new techniques from watching and taking advice from them when they're like, "Oh, have you ever tried this?" I'm like, "No, I haven't, but I'd love to see." Seeing different things. Yeah, it's not I am the teacher, I know all. It is actually quite the opposite. You start realizing how much you can learn, and I go into things with that mindset. What can I learn from them as well? It has taught me to slow down because my mind might have a vision of the posture, of the movement, of the flow, but they haven't yet built that neural pathway in their minds on particular things. So it has taught me a lot of compassion, a lot of grace, and it has completely changed the way that I parent.
That's a beautiful mindset. My mentor always taught me whatever level of awareness you are, you can always learn something from somebody. And that's just teaching, we are all the same divine spirit. We come from the same spirit. And being humble, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, Brandy, what advice would you give to someone who feels disconnected from themselves and they don't even know where to start?
Oh man, it's so painful. So, my experience is I think when we're in that state, we don't even really know. I think it really wasn't until every area of my life was unmanageable. So I would say first recognizing the areas that are unmanageable and seeking out guidance. I would say hiring coaches, connecting, and finding people that are either doing the same thing you're doing, working on the same thing, or teaching the same thing that you're wanting. If our marriages are in disarray, if our eating habits are in disarray, if our physical health is in disarray, right? If we can identify, like I would say 6, 7 years ago, there was probably 15 areas that was in complete disarray. And so this is where a lot of people stop. There's just so much, it's just too much. And you have to take it in bite-sized pieces. Pick the one that is the most dysfunctional, that is the most disarrayed. Say your relationship, that one's probably the one that's going to affect you the most in the long run, or your health. So identifying the one thing that is probably the worst area and just starting there. Give it, 6 weeks to 90 days and say, for this amount of time, this is going to be my primary focus, and you can still work on these other areas, but that's the thing where I see that most people stop doing the thing they want is because they're not getting results quick enough and they're not staying consistent. So I'd say consistency, the people you surround yourself with, and the belief system that you deserve it would be a good starting point.
Those are great tips. We're all worthy. We're all worthy of what we want. And I believe that want comes from spirit. There's no reason that you can't have it. And definitely great tips. So, Brandy, for people curious about hair extensions, what should they look for in a stylist or an educator?
Mm. So I would say find somebody who is willing to listen. Find somebody who is willing to work through the process. This is a very interesting one because we oftentimes don't even know what that looks like because a lot of times our own impatience wants us to seek out a quicker answer. And I'll give you some examples. I've had some people come in the salon and they want a quick fix to hair loss and then they just stop showing up versus 3 ladies I was working with last month. I think 2 of them got toppers, one of them got a medical wig. But it started first with a consultation. Then it started with deciding what design they wanted, what texture they wanted, what color they wanted. And so it took anywhere from a month to a month and a half to really create and figure out this design and then send it into our distributors, then get it back. And then from that point, we customize color it for them. So it's different than off the shelf grab and go. But this way you're getting what you want. And that's the hardest part is waiting, but also finding a stylist willing to do all the work with you, not just here's this, we're done.
Yeah, that's great. And you are a good listener and you're good at asking questions and finding out what they want and what makes them feel good. And you have the patience to help them figure out the right color and the right whatever it is that they want. That's great. I love that. That sounds good. Okay, so what's one small habit that you could leave with the listeners to help them feel more grounded, more centered? One little habit they could do every day.
Man, I love this one. And I'm actually, this is going to be the next speech I do at Toastmasters. I'm just so passionate about 10 minutes. This sounds so funny and it seems so small and so irrelevant, but I'll tell you where this 10-minute habit came into play. A couple years ago, I just could not get myself to clean, to organize, to do any kind of functional living. But I realized, kind of back to where we were talking about, how much it was debilitating me not being able to do some of these things. So I watched a TED talk, and this guy said you can do anything 10 minutes at a time. And he talked about him having ADHD and all of these things. And I saw all these magical things he did 10 minutes at a time. And so me and my friend got online every single night for 10 minutes and we cleaned together. And over time, we started having a nicer house. We started organizing, and then all of a sudden, I found myself randomly cleaning for 10 minutes at a time or randomly doing whatever for 10 minutes at a time. And now I do that with everything, especially the things I've identified my struggles are. Am I struggling with practicing talking to my kids? Am I struggling with practicing hard conversations? Like identifying whatever it is and saying, for 10 minutes, can I just practice this one thing for 10 minutes every day? 10 minutes over a whole week is 70 minutes for one person. My husband, me, and my bonus son, we do that every single night. That's 30 minutes a night of cleaning, which equals no cleaning on the weekends, not very much, anyways. So, 10 minutes at a time, take 10 minutes for any practice you're struggling in and just start there.
Great, great idea. I notice sometimes too, even if I do it for 10 minutes, and I'm like, I can do it for 15. It's
Yeah,
easily, it
yeah, yeah.
progresses. Yes, that's wonderful. So I have maybe one last question, Brandy. Do you have any specific books that are your favorite, or maybe that you'd like to share with the listeners that they could start reading and start diving deeper into these subjects of meditation or yoga?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to pull up my Audible real quick. I love books. I learned so much from books. And it's so funny because it all depends where we're at in life. I know when I was first trying to get sober, trying to understand that, my favorite book was completely different than what it turned into be. Higher Achiever, that one's a really good one for anybody trying to get sober. Higher Achiever, oh my gosh, I cried and cried and cried. There's also a book, it's called You Are Enough. One thing I had to learn through all of these books, I wasn't going to agree with everything, but you take something from them. In the book, You Are Enough, there was a point in my life, when everybody thought I had all my shit together, but I was dying inside. And through this book, it just kept reminding me, you are enough, you are enough, you are enough. So if you're at that point where you're like, man, I just have no self-confidence, that book has changed my world. And then going into Joe Dispenza or Eckhart Tolle for the meditation, the mindset stuff, it's all very, very relevant. Yes, the power of now. It really depends on where you're at in your journey. But those are some really great places. Yep. Really great places to start. The Mel Robbins, she's fantastic. She talks a lot about the mind in a way that you can understand. Tony Robbins changed my world. He was probably one of my very first mentors. There's just so many good ones. And yeah, if you want to reach out, I would be happy. I have so many books. Um, there again, 10 years ago, I was like, I don't read, I don't listen, I can't learn, I don't have that ability. We all have the ability 10 minutes at a time.
Wonderfully said. Okay. Well, I am so glad you joined us today. It's been a wonderful podcast. I hope that listeners can take something out of this and brighten your day, change some habits, start out doing some meditation or whatever it is, just mindfulness and being in the present moment. Thank you so much, Brandy, and I sure appreciate your time.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate you having me.